What's going on, Miami Dolphins fans? Welcome back to the Fins Up Network. It is Ben Morgan, and in today's video, I want to continue on with our player profile series. I talked about Saquandre White in the last one, and today I want to talk about Cedrick Wilson and specifically the role that he can play in this Dolphins offense now that he's alongside Tyreek and Jaylen Waddle and Mike Gesicki. But before we get started, your homework assignment for the day, leave a comment on this video regarding your thoughts on Wilson. How do you see him factoring into this offense? Always, as always, if you like the content in this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you are getting subscribed. But let's jump in to Cedrick Wilson, because let's go back a couple of months. Acquired this offseason in free agency, signed the 3-year deal worth $22.8 million, $12.75 million guaranteed. So you knew there was a plan. And if you can think back to March, this deal happened before the Dolphins traded for Tyreek, and it's before they traded away Devontae Parker to New England. So even at that point in time, we sort of thought Parker was probably done in Miami. And while we thought the team might add another wide receiver along with Wilson, we never imagined it was going to be the likes of Tyreek Hill, a player of that caliber. So when Cedrick Wilson was brought in, the initial thought that at least came to my mind was, he'll be a key player for the Dolphins at the receiver position. Obviously now with Waddle and Tyreek on the roster, Cedrick Wilson is looking to be the team's wide receiver 3 at best. But that doesn't mean that the team doesn't have a plan for him. So I want to take a look at Wilson's role and his usage a couple of different ways. First, we'll look at how Tua Tagovailoa has included numerous pass catchers in the past. We'll look at how he was used last year in Dallas. And then finally, how Mike McDaniel offenses has spread the ball around in the past as well. First, I feel comfortable saying that the Dolphins' top 4 pass catching options in 2022 will be Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle, Mike Gesicki, and Ced Wilson. Now, I would say that Tua hasn't had a high-quality top 4 like this his entire time in the NFL. He also hasn't been healthy enough or protected well enough to give us a big enough, a good enough sample size during his time in the NFL. So I want to go back to 2018 when he was at Bama, when he played a full 15-game schedule for the Crimson Tide. And most importantly, he had the playmakers to go along with it. Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Jaylen Waddle, Irv Smith, and Devontae Smith. Those were his top 5 guys. All of those guys had 42 or more catches. Jeudy had the most with 68. All of those guys had over 690 receiving yards. Jeudy the most with 1,315. And all of them had 6 or more touchdowns. Jeudy the most again with 14. Spreading the ball around is not an issue for Tua. In fact, you could say that it was one of his biggest strengths coming into the league. I always use that blackjack dealer analogy. Get him in the gun, spread out those playmakers, let Tua read the field, get it to his guys, let the playmakers get the ball in the open field and let him go to work. So that's Tua at Bama. Now let's talk about last year, Cedrick Wilson with Dallas. You can see the 2021, I should use this hand. You can see the 2021 numbers on the scroll there, but you could argue that Cedrick Wilson was the Cowboys' 5th best receiving target last year in the Cowboys passing game when they were healthy. I mean, it's CeeDee Lamb, it's Amari Cooper, it's Michael Gallup, and obviously they had a tight end on the field for a lot of those plays. So you've got to throw a healthy Dalton Schultz in there. The thing is, it wasn't too often when all of those guys were healthy at the same time. Lamb missed a game. Cooper missed 2 games. Gallup missed 8 games, and Cedrick Wilson missed a game. But as you can see, those are still some pretty quality numbers for Wilson, especially considering he finished 5th on the team in catches, 6th in targets, 4th in yards, and tied for 3rd in touchdowns. So he proved last year that not only can he fill in when a guy goes down on injury and he's needed to step up his snap count, he can post some respectable numbers despite not being one of the team's top targets. So now lastly, let's look on to what the 49ers did last year. So obviously Mike McDaniel wasn't the head coach. He wasn't the primary play caller. And I do think that Mike McDaniel puts his own spin kind of on this Kyle Shanahan type offense. But last year's 49ers team is the latest and best example that we have at our disposal. So we'll use that for these purposes. So the 49ers only had 3 players that I consider primary pass catchers: Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. All of them had 56 or more catches, 800 or more receiving yards, and 5 or more touchdowns. So while these numbers don't bode well for Miami potentially supporting 4 pass catchers, or in the Cowboys situation, 5 pass catchers, keep in mind how good that 49ers run game has been, and especially was last year. Every other pass catcher with the 49ers, outside of those top 3, had less than 30 receptions and less than 300 receiving yards. But on the contrary, look at the rushing game. That team, 6th most rushing attempts last year, 7th most rushing yards, and the 6th most rushing touchdowns. So will the Dolphins' rushing offense be better in 22 than it was in 21? Sure. It would be hard for it not to be. But will it rank in the top 7 of those 3 categories? My money would say no. So at the end of the day, provided the Miami Dolphins pass catchers stay healthy, I think we're looking at Ced Wilson as the team's wide receiver 3. But in regard to like the pecking order, regardless of the position, just in regards to pass catchers and targets, I think we're looking at pass catcher number 4 because of how Mike Gesicki will end up being used. But I mean, you look at Wilson, he can be counted on to move the sticks. He's solid after the catch. And importantly, don't rule out him being used creatively by Mike McDaniel as well. Last year, Cedrick Wilson went 3 for 3 passing. The year before, he went 2 for 2. He's got a perfect completion percentage on the line. So maybe they take advantage of something like that. He's been used on the return game before in both kicks and punts. So while his numbers, I don't think in 2022 with the Dolphins are going to jump off the page at you. They're not going to scream stud Pro Bowl type guy like what we hope to see out of Waddle or Hill. I don't think we're looking at a 1,000-yard guy. We're not looking at a double-digit touchdown guy. But he can still be a key player in taking this offense to the next level. And he can especially be a benefactor, excuse me, of the coverage that Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle are going to command. But that's what I've got for Cedrick Wilson today. Like I mentioned earlier, let's hear your thoughts on Wilson, his role with the Dolphins offense in 2022. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you are getting subscribed. So that's what I've got today, Dolphins fans. And until next time, I gotta do the outro that I spent so much time on. Fins out.